Monroe County has about 73,000 people, and our Congresswoman represents probably 850,000 people. And so we're just a little blip on her radar screen, except we're really not. She comes down here a lot. She knows all of our issues, and she takes our issues back to Washington, and to coin an old phrase, she fights for us every day, and we're very, very fortunate to have her, and I love her.
So much. I cannot believe that this huge gathering is the gathering of the Monroe County GOP. I can't believe it. Now, normally, what I would do is introduce Marco, but I'm going to do things a little bit differently tonight. Marco, I want to introduce this great community to you. Now, I know you know the Keys, but I've been blessed to represent this community for almost 10 years, and I've loved each and every day. And if there's one thing that I'm going to fight for in this reapportionment, as you know, every 10 years we do the census and they redo the district lines, and I have nothing to do with how they configure those lines. But there's one thing that I tell those state legislators every time they come up to D.C. to talk about redistricting. I said, please give me the keys, because Marco, what I have found, Marco, come on up here. What I have found, let's give this guy a hand. Let's give him a round of applause and a standing ovation. And I am no fool. I know that the only thing standing in the way of Marco and this microphone is me shutting up. So I want to keep this very brief. Well, Marco, it's been a delight for me to have represented the Keys, because these are hard-working folks. They've worked all of their lives. Some of them have come here to retire. Some of them continue to work. And this is one of the most expensive counties in the state of Florida in which to live. And everybody thinks the Keys, oh, everybody's a millionaire at the Keys. They've got all these beautiful mansions, and they've got no worries. And these guys tough it out every year with rising unemployment, with a very difficult situation that they contend with young people graduating from high school and not having a job, with mortgage rates going up the roof, no pun intended, with insurance rates, with property values, all the property taxes that they pay, with the crucial tourism industry slowly drying up, with the problems that they have with tourism, with the fishing industry. These guys have it tough, and the papers and all the media, they like to portray it as paradise. But one thing I know is that these guys are survivors. These guys have survived this recession, but these guys know that there's one thing that we've got to do in Washington, and Marco is telling you this gospel truth each and every day. We've got to stop spending money we don't have. And if there's one guy who came out to D.C. to make a difference, and he talks the talk and he walks the walk, our U.S. Senator, your U.S. Senator, your friend, my friend, everybody's friend, if you're a fiscal conservative and you love your country, Marco Rubio.
I apologize for disrupting the order of the dinner tonight. I actually, unfortunately, have a family issue that I have to attend to back home. It'll all be good at the end of the day. But it's insignificant that I do have to return home a little bit earlier than I expected. But I didn't want to miss this opportunity to be here with all of you. First, to be here with Debbie, and it's been a phenomenal job, who I've known since '95, quite a while. And all of you here locally at the local leadership, I mean, you should all to be commended for what you do here in Monroe County in keeping the Republican banner flying high and the future of America on the forefront of all the issues you tackle. I'm proud to be a part of it, and I look forward to coming back as often as I can and I appreciate how accommodating and flexible you've been with both of us in getting a date that will work around the calendar that we're working with. Of course, Ileana Ros-Lehtinen is someone who means a lot of things at multiple levels to many of us. I actually I say this everywhere I go because it's really important. I especially say it when there are young people from her office present, because I got my very first start in politics in her office as an intern, literally. It was in 1991. I was just a college student. I didn't even do it for credit. I called up the office and I said, "Do you have any internships?" They said, "Yeah, we don't have any money." I said, "No, I work for free." She goes, "Oh, we've got plenty of those free jobs." And went in, but I learned so much. And one of the main things you learn is that politics is not just about glamour. It's not just about the cameras and the speeches. Really, 90% of it is the grind of every single day of answering those phones and answering those letters. And when it comes to that, to constituent service, to responding to the needs of people in the community, because that's a big part of our job. People think part of the job of being in Congress is being in Washington and voting, and that's true. But a big part of that job is when people call you because they've got a problem with their veterans benefits, or they've got issues going on with some agency of government that they're interacting with, and you want your congressperson or you want your senator to be responsive. And the gold standard, in my opinion, I think in the opinion of everybody, for how you do that, is Congresswoman Ros-Lehtinen's office. It's the gold standard of constituent service. And then you add to that, the second part of your job as a legislator to actually go to Washington and have policy mastery, which she has been able to accomplish in an area that I actually have a strong affinity for, and that's foreign affairs and foreign relations. And as you all know, she chairs that committee in the House and does a phenomenal job. And when people think about her role there, they think, well, you know, she cares deeply about the cause of Cuban freedom, and it's true, and she's a strong leader in that regard. But it's also true in every other part of the world. I mean, her mastery of the subject matter on issue after issue is extraordinary for me, watching as someone who's just getting into the process and really experiencing foreign policy for the first time. And I would just tell you that one of the great benefits of having the majority now in the House is that she gets to chair that committee. So it's always an honor to be here. There are many people here who were helpful to me early on in my career, and in my race. There's one person in particular that I want to single out because he's a good friend and a strong supporter, someone I actually worked with, not even when I was in the Florida House, but the 2 years that I was the Speaker of the House, and that's Ken Sorensen. Ken, so I'll be brief and to the point, but I do want to be meaningful. I'm glad to be here with you today and have an opportunity to share with you for a few moments my impressions after being 8 months in Washington about the way things are going. Oh, God. And I guess what I would say to you is that everything I've learned in the first 8 months confirms everything I believed during the campaign, except more so than before. I honestly believe this country has a very fundamental choice it needs to make over the next few years about what we want to look like, particularly what we want the role of our government to be in our lives moving forward. Now, most Americans, if you watched the Reagan speech that I gave in California, this will be familiar to you, but I still think it's true, and so I wanted to share with you again, and the feedback I got last week about it. I think the vast majority of Americans believe in a country that's both, on the one hand, very prosperous, where there's nothing wrong with working really hard at being successful economically, but on the other hand, a country that's really compassionate, where the price of being prosperous is not leaving people behind. The truth of the matter is we are too rich and prosperous a people to leave people behind that cannot help themselves. And so our dual goals in this nation is to have a nation of both prosperity and at the same time of compassion. And for the better part of a century now, we have struggled with how to accomplish that, and in particular, what should government's role be in accomplishing that? And for much of the last of the 20th century, the role that was played out was that what policymakers said is, let's go ahead, yes, let's keep our free economy, let's keep our private economy, let's keep free enterprise, but let's balance it with a strong government that through taxes and regulations and government programs can take the edge off the impact that the market has on American life. And it was well-intentioned, and both parties have actually pursued it. And some good policies have resulted from it. But the net of it is that it's unsustainable. The 20th century was not an era of decline. The 20th century was an era of tremendous prosperity. Even as we stand here today with the problems that we face, the United States of America is the richest, most prosperous economy in the history of the world. There has never been an economy the size of ours. There's never even a close second. And yet the startling fact is that we have built here a government so expensive that not even the richest, most prosperous economy in the world can afford it. And the road that we're on now is simply unsustainable. no matter how well-intentioned it may be. It's unsustainable. And so the role that government now plays in America will not continue. It will not continue because it cannot continue. And so the question really before us is not whether government will continue to play the role that it plays now in America. The question is how will we transition into something newer and better, something that actually allows us to accomplish both the prosperity and the compassion we want, but in a way that's affordable for our future. And there's only two ways that that's going to happen. The first way is that it's forced upon us, that policymakers decide to do nothing, that we just sit on our hands, look the other way, and let time take its toll, and that will happen. Eventually, you'll hear these statistics about how in 15 years our debt will be the size of our economy. The truth is it'll never get there, because no one in the world is crazy enough to keep lending us money. If we don't do something, eventually our creditors will. Eventually those people that lend money or buy American debt will say, we're not selling you anymore. Or the first thing they'll say is, we sell you more debt, we want more interest in return. We got a higher yield, which means we'll all pay higher interest rates on everything. Which means we'll borrow more money just to pay the debt, the interest on the debt, which creates a spiral. The second thing that will eventually happen is we won't lend you any more at all. And in between and along that road, you'll see dramatic cuts in government benefits, a major restructuring of all kinds of things that we now have come to expect as a people. You'll see massive tax increases, massive increases in the interest rate, things that none of us want to see. All of it hoisted upon us because we refuse to act. If we do nothing, that's where we'll go. If we buy into this line that people out there are telling you, anybody that comes to you and says, all we have to do is raise taxes on rich people, and we can keep everything we have, they're not telling you the truth. And by the way, people that come to you and say that all we have to do is get rid of fraud and abuse and waste, and we can keep everything we have, they're not telling you the truth either. We cannot keep everything we have as it is right now, because it's unsustainable. That's a mathematical fact. It's not what I want it to be. It's not what I need it to be. It's not what ideologically I believe it to be. It is a mathematical certainty that what we have today as our government spends more money than it takes in. Not a little bit more, a lot more. It spends $300 billion a month is what our government budget is. $180 billion of that comes from taxes. The other $120 billion comes from money that we borrow, and it only gets worse. So that you can't keep doing that. It's not going to happen. The other choice is that we actually come up with a plan to deal with this problem. That we actually sit down and say, okay, look, what we need to do here is control our spending in the future and also grow our economy and do both at the same time. And I argue that that's what we need to do, and we need to do it right now. And I think the sooner the better, and here's why. Because the sooner we do that, the more options we have. That if we actually moved on it now, if we moved on it right now, people like my mom, 55 years of age or older, who are on Social Security and Medicare, will never see any changes to their benefits if we act on it now. If we act on it now, we'll be able to do this in a way where the disruptions will be minimized. Where we can actually reform our tax code so that it makes sense, so that it's easy to comply with. That we'll actually reform our regulatory code so you don't have all this puzzles and maze of regulations that are difficult to comply with, that actually discourage people from building businesses here in this country. Where we'll actually have a government that can afford to do the things government should do, because it's not spending money on things government doesn't need to do. If we act now, we actually have these options still available to us. And we can do it gradually over an extended period of time, not overnight. That's the benefit of acting now. The problem is, it appears to me that there's still a lot of people in both parties that actually believe that let's just see if we can get through one more election cycle without having to do anything. Can we just use a Social Security attack one more time? Can we just leave Medicare the way it is so we can attack people about it one more time? Can we just get by one more election before we actually deal with this stuff? And the answer is, I'm not sure we can. These sovereign debt crises are not predictable. And the sad part is that it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. We can build a country of both prosperity and compassion. I believe in America's retirement programs. We need Medicare. We need Social Security. But if we want them to exist for future generations in a way that doesn't overall undermine America's economic ability to grow in future generations, we have to accept the fact that people like me that are 3 decades away from retirement are going to have a Social Security and a Medicare program that looks different from the ones our parents have and deserve to continue to have. By the way, people say, well, that's just politics. You don't want to affect the senior vote. The truth is, these folks that have been paying into the system for 30, 40 years have bought into a certain promise that was made to them. And what's being asked of my generation of Americans is that we accept that we're going to accept some things are going to be different for us. so that our parents and our grandparents get what they deserve, and so our children and our grandchildren inherit what they deserve. Every American generation has been asked to make a choice like that. And I think when you compare ours to what other people have been asked to do in the history of our nation, we got a pretty good deal. These are the choices that lie before us. And they're important ones, because if we make them, the 21st century can be more prosperous than the 20th for Americans. Because all this talk and worry that people have about the rise of this country and the rise of that country, there's a benefit. I'm glad that there are millions of people being pulled out of poverty all over the world, by the way, by the free market. That means there are more people than ever that are going to be able to afford to buy the things that our children are going to invent and build, God willing. More people for us to trade with. More people for us to have economic activity with. When a nation is prosperous and people are focused on business, they're not focused on war or acts of terrorism or conquest. The good news is that America's bright light, our prosperity, the opportunity available here, are leading by example in our lives, in our social interaction, in our government, in our republic, has inspired the rest of the world. As much as they may say they don't like us, they admire us, and they wish they were us. And so that's why every nation that's embraced market concepts and the free enterprise system has found prosperity. That's why the idea of socialism is increasingly, for most people all over the world, something unthinkable. This is a positive development, which means the 21st century, if we want it to be, can be every bit as much the American century as the 20th. But we have to make that choice. As we gather, I know that almost everyone here is a Republican. As we gather here as Republicans, that's what our party should be about. People ask me all the time, well, what can the party do to diversify, reach younger voters, Americans of Hispanic descent, African Americans? How do we expand the base of the party? The truth is that all people at the end of the day pretty much want the same things. They want to be able to accomplish their dreams and their hopes. They believe that God created in them potential and ambition. And they want to be able to have a fair shot at accomplishing that. And they want to leave their kids better off than themselves. They want their children to have every opportunity they didn't have. No matter how well you've done in life, you want everything that's gone wrong in your life to go right for your kids. And you want to live in a country where that opportunity is available to you. No matter where you were born, who your parents are, or where you start out in life. And our argument should be that there's only one economic system in the world where that's possible. And that's the American free enterprise system. And the American free enterprise system, if we want it to continue the way we have known it, if we actually want it to go beyond anything we could ever have imagined, will require us to make some simple but important choices right now. When people think about the Republican Party, that's what they should think about. It's the party of upward mobility. It's the party of economic opportunity. It's the party that stands for the people that are trying to make it. Because we know that big government and big regulations and a complicated tax code, the people that have already made it big, millionaires and billionaires, they don't like that stuff, but they can afford to deal with that stuff. They don't like it, but if they have to, they'll hire the lawyers and the law firms and the accountants to deal with those things. Who can't do that? It's the people starting out. It's the people trying to start a business out of their spare bedroom of their home. It's the people trying to start a business out of the garage of their mom's house. It's the people who max out a credit card or a line of credit because they have this great idea and they believe they can make it work. It's the entrepreneurs. It's the job creator. It's the people that are trying to make it, but cannot overcome these layers of bureaucracy, regulations, and taxes. And that's what we should be about. We have to be clear in our message that that's what we're ultimately fighting for. Is for our economy to continue to be a place of upward mobility, where anyone from anywhere can accomplish anything. This debate before us is a golden opportunity to do that. And in so doing, to bring about a change in our republic that will allow us to usher in a new century that, as hard as it may be to believe right now, will be even more prosperous and greater than our history. So that's why I'm always grateful to be able to come out and speak to groups like this, and I'm inspired by groups like this to do it. I wish I could have spent more time. I never need to be convinced to come to the Keys. We spent a lot of time here. I've created a lot of great family memories here. I have a lot of admiration for the people that live throughout the Keys. People always, first couple observations. The first is, every time I come here, no one's wearing a tie. So today I didn't wear a tie to fit in, and now half of you are wearing ties. I'm not sure there's some secret 800 number I got to call to get I'm wearing ties today. No ties. So I'll figure that out. Did I ever tell you the time I went to the courtroom? Where was the courtroom here? I've never seen it. I mean, it's great. I wish every courtroom was like that. Everybody was like so laid back. And I mean, the criminal still got punished, but in a more understanding sort of way. When people often comment, "Oh, it's a different place down there." It is. But I always say, I think they got it right, and the rest of us got it wrong. So, but I actually think it's such an important part of our. You know, for a lot of people around the country, I know this is probably true for you as well, Ileana, in Washington. What they know about Florida is Orlando and the Keys. I mean, you know, that's really what they've experienced, and that's fine with me. In terms of that being the impression that people have, I am a big admirer of what I believe. From the history of Florida on down is an area of our state that's given us some of the most sturdy people, sometimes some of the most stubborn people, but that's a good thing. And and I say stubborn like, you know, there's like a Category 5 storm, I'm not going anywhere. We're so small it'll be over before you know it. I actually had somebody tell me that one time. It's like, well, it's our island small. It's not. It's like Miami. It'll pass over so fast. In the Keys, everyone's a meteorologist. That's and a treasure hunter. And anyway, so I appreciate it very much. Look, I look forward to coming back. If we could ever serve you, we'd be happy to do that. We don't have an office in the Keys. We just couldn't get away with it. I mean, we really would have both done it. But we tried to headquarter here, you know. But we do have an office in Doral, and obviously we will look for ways to come down here, whether it's, and I don't know what plans we have. Both our state director, Todd Reed, is here, and our South Florida director, Eileen Higgins, are here. And what we'll try to do is look for ways in the months to come down here and have office days in some of your civic centers and some of your local government offices to be available to constituents, the needs they may have. And of course, you know, our phone numbers always works. Emails, of course, work very well for us, and that we're there to work for you. Of course, you're represented by the gold standard, so we're just there as a backup in case our lines are busy, because they do such a phenomenal job. I am thankful, I'm grateful to all of you. God bless all of you. God bless the Keys. God bless the United States. Thank you.
Really going good, wasn't it? Yeah. We have some gifts for Ileana, for Congresswoman Ros-Lehtinen, and for Senator Rubio.
Oh, yes. I remember you told me.
This is a box, and it's got our Keys GOP logo on it, and on the inside is a compass. And we know that Marco and Ileana, Congresswoman Ros-Lehtinen and Senator Rubio have strong moral compasses, and our Congresswoman has been up there. How many years have you been? 20, whatever. She has not gotten the inside the beltway mentality yet, and we know that our senator's not going to get it either. But just in case, you open this, and it will always point you in the right direction.
It always points south.
Mayor Pro Tem, David.
Marco, I want to thank you for being here tonight. It's wonderful to see you. You know, several years ago, we realized what we meant to you, and we realized what we meant to you. And, vice versa. Tonight, I'm going to do something that, as far as I know, is unprecedented. We gave you a conch certificate back then, which truly made you one of us. Tonight, we're going to update his conch certificate. Last time we gave a conch certificate to Marco Rubio, who was very special to us. Tonight, we're going to give a conch certificate to Senator Marco Rubio. And by the way, we have one more in the drawer. It reads President Marco Rubio.